Well, and so
No, it's
not to
not, though.
jump topics too much, but speaking of hitting a snags, the SpaceX didn't land their booster this last week.
Right.
Was it another water
it's
landing?
hilarious that this
soft
is
water
now
landing.
this is now news, folks. A booster didn't land, and now it's news. So this is actually kind of shocking because this was a mission that is now the most routine mission for them, a Starlink mission. This was their 4th operational flight, kind of 5th of the full stack of satellites. So, but as you can tell, I was there on Monday. Everything looked great. The booster, of course, did its job, and then deployed the 60 Starlink satellites. Everything was great. And they happened to hit some kind of snafu on the way down. And there's a ton of speculation. They
haven't announced
no
what it was
info.
yet. No? Oh, okay.
There's no info about what it actually is yet. I mean, there's kind of been some whisperings, but there were really high winds around the landing site. And these Starlink missions are actually pushing the vehicle like really, really hard. They're about as hard and low margin of landings as the Falcon 9 will ever do, or likely will ever do. So if they're landing in extreme conditions where, say you have a lot, this is total speculation, but I'm drawing up a scenario where you might see a nominal booster not perform nominally. And that's, if it's really, really windy and the vehicle has to totally turn to correct itself during the last bit of landing burn to try to save itself, or try to correct for that, it doesn't have enough propellant to really do a massive burn and a massive correction because it's such a low margin landing. Now, if it was a lighter payload, there's a lot more room that the engines have to be able to throttle up and veer themselves more sideways and pitch over more to correct for some of that additional movement. So there's things like that because they scrubbed it another day. First, they scrubbed it because of a upper stage valve that needed to be replaced. Then they scrubbed it because the landing weather was such a big concern. So this, unless we hear something else, we still haven't heard anything about mechanical failures. It did appear to splash down directly next to the drone ship, just barely missing it, within enough that here. So this is, well, we'll get into like the other things, but I will show you something really interesting. I didn't notice this until Scott Manley pointed it out on YouTube. But here's the landing burn. I hope this plays okay for you guys. Is it looking okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, we hear the whole landing legs deployed, so we know the booster's coming in. And I didn't know this because I was live streaming, and all of a sudden, boom, off to the right, you see that splash, that smoke. And then watch this. Watch what happens after the smoke kind of clears. You actually see, get ready for water on the lens because it tipped over and splashed. Get ready. You'll see a big old splash of water here in a second. And then a few more. Look at boom, 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 boom. The lens got splattered when it tipped over.
And they cut away.
And they cut away, yeah.
Immediately.
So it had a soft touchdown. And then a lot of people were speculating. We saw this thing, and we've seen this before on boosters. I think it was around here. Where was it? There we go. So see to the left side of the grid fin, there's a little thing. We've seen that before. And actually, ironically, the only other time I really remember that exact thing was CRS-16. That was the mission that had the failed grid fins and it ditched itself in the ocean. But I don't think it's at all related because that was a stall state, some kind of state that made the hydraulic system stall out. And that's not like an open system where it's leaking and now they have leaking hydraulic fluid and it froze. This just appears, I'm guessing a lot of times just there's ice buildup around, so now you can see it break off.
Yeah.
And people
there was a snake on it.
Yeah. Space snake.
Space snakes.
So
I saw those in Star Wars.
I want a shirt that says Space Snakes now.
Snake on a rocket instead of snakes on a plane. That'll be part 2. I'll make snakes on a rocket, and it'll be part 2 of snakes on a plane.
Tired of
but
these
basically,
mother effing snakes on this mother effing rocket.
So we still don't really know, honestly, what went wrong. I would not read into that because we do see that sometimes. It's just there's so much ice that builds up around these vehicles, especially on particularly humid days. It's pretty likely that, there's a solid chunk of ice sitting there, whatever, or gas or ice oxygen type of stuff or whatever, what is that, like solid oxygen? I don't know. We see that build up and stuff too. So we don't really know what happened, but it's just hilarious that these days it's like, what? It didn't land?
Yeah.
Already, this was supposed to be the 50th landing, by the way. So
yeah, that was a bummer.
Yeah, happy anniversary. But the good news is this particular booster was able to fly 4 times. Like, don't forget that. This booster flew 4 times more than a successful rocket. Like, think about that. Like, a rocket is successful if it flies once. This one flew 4 times. Yeah. So always keep that in mind.
Because I am incapable of having a single opinion on anything. My first thought when it didn't land was exactly what you just said. Isn't it amazing that it's now news when they don't land? Like, that's awesome and that's encouraging and all that. But at the same time, because I can't just be happy about anything, my next thought was, yeah, but if that was Starship, people would have died.
Yeah.
Maybe. Like that
maybe.
As gung-ho as I am about Starship, there's still things like that kind of make me go, But
let's extrapolate that out. So,
and I know I'm pissing off everyone right now by even saying that, but it's just, that's what's going on.
It's a valid concern because you're relying on a landing burn, a propulsive landing for human lives. And that's never been done before outside of the Apollo missions
thing too.
that landed on the moon. Those were the only missions in history that have relied on propulsive landings.
Wow, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. Huh. So, but to counter your point,
that's if we did land on the moon.
Because God,
that's proof that we didn't.
Well,
sit back down.
I think there's another topic we wanted to talk about related to that, so I'll let you guys keep going.
You're right. We have a lot to talk about today. I like this. This is going to be a fun one. But to counter your point,
and Ben's just on the floor, like, yeah, let's keep talking.
Yeah, he's curled over, dying.
Can I bring the microphone? Can I bring the microphone down here? Does that work?
Yeah. Let's just see your forehead. You could be Wilson from Home Improvement.
Hey guys.
Yes.
We'll just see the top of your head.
Whatever. Do you, Ben? Just don't die. That's rule number 1. No dying. But to counter your point, the Falcon 9 landing is not human life critical. Lives critical. Therefore, it has they're going to risk it a lot more. There's no redundancy for the landing engines really because it requires that center engine to land. I don't think there's backups. Sometimes they do a 3-engine landing burn, but I don't think there's any kind of contingency that if that center engine doesn't light up, that they'll try to light 2 and do a later, more aggressive burn. Like, I don't think there's any plans in place if the center engine doesn't light up. And that's different than Starship. Starship would have the option of having 3 engines light up, at kind of their minimum throttle setting, plus all the maneuverable systems will all be redundant. There'll be redundant ways to move those flaps, overlapping redundancies. And this vehicle, the Falcon 9 is really, at this point, lightweight. It's only like 20 tons, when it's coming into land. And so that's basically a giant sail. And it's going to be affected by the wind a lot. Actually, Starship in that case might almost be worse, though.
I was about to say.
Because, it's ratio.
Let's just
it's a
not
lot wider.
land.
There's a lot more surface area.
Let's just not land Starship on Earth, okay? Just let's not do that. Let's land it on
How would you get back then?
Maybe the moon or Titan, Europa, one of those.
But how do you get it? How do you get the people from there back?
Space is dangerous, people. Okay.
One-way ticket.
When you were on the website, it didn't have a round trip option. That should have been your first clue.
But yeah, I think, and I'm going to let them have a pass on this and not draw it as a direct comparison to Starship because it's not designed to no matter what be able to land. It's still just kind of a bonus for them when they do land it ish. But I'm really thinking it'd be worth them to make it more redundant since how much could that cost compared to losing a $20 million booster or however much that booster cost them. It seems like that's going to cost them a lot more than, I don't know. They're probably still figuring it all out, But hopefully now they know their weakest points. I'd like to see them kind of fail so they know what their thresholds are, what their limits are, and how to design parameters around that for Starship.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting going forward, watching how they test it and everything. But I guess, like you said, it would be more human flight rated for the landing. It would be a lot more redundant, and they would test it a lot more and all that. But I guess the second worry for me would be that that's going to push back the actual usefulness of Starship for human rated flight anyway. I mean, we don't really talk about this, but like how much of Starship might just be used for cargo at first before it becomes human rated, kind of like they did with Dragon, you know?
Oh, for sure. For sure. Like I think the first several variants of Starship will be uncrewed.
Yeah.
So they really, really will practice that, all those things that we're talking about, so that they don't make a boo-boo, you know?
Yeah. Which would be a
they'll have
major
plenty of data before they put anyone on that thing. I know that they're trying to get Yusaku around the moon in 2022. I mean, I'm not saying that's impossible, but like, I want to make sure they've done
100 push-up bet right
20
now.
successful landings or something.
I'll bet you 100 push-ups they don't
Ben's
do it.
dying. That they don't do it in 2022?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that same bet, because I don't think they'll do it in 2022 either.
I think they're being pretty ambitious with that.
Hey, thanks for checking us out, guys. I hope you enjoyed this clip from our podcast.
We do a weekly show here on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe to Our Ludicrous Future, where we discuss all the things that are going to make our future totally ludicrous.
You can join us here on YouTube or at any of your favorite podcast places. Plus, if you want to get some behind-the-scenes stuff and join a cool community, you can help support the channel at patreon.com. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.